I'd like to ask you four more questions before we conclude tonight, though, and I think they're going to be questions that you can kind of answer a little bit like concisely.
Okay.
But I'm definitely open to going in more depth. So back to agorism.
I'm also open to continuing this next week if you want. That's good. I'm enjoying this conversation.
Okay. I am as well. So back to agorism versus partyarchy. Oh, and thank you for extending the invite too. That slipped my mind. So have you ever refrained? Okay, voting is one of the three cornerstones of agorism. Have you ever refrained from voting for the reason that voting is a construct of government?
Not for the reason that it's a construct of government, but because I believe it makes you culpable for the effects of your actions.
So how would you discuss the importance of voting with an agorist?
Is voting important?
Voting for you specifically.
I would ask you if you think voting is important. I think it's a silly, immoral, invalid system of control over people's lives. So would I try and convince you to vote as a voter? Nope, because my message is the opposite. My message is that the system is invalid and shouldn't be used to achieve freedom. It can't be used to achieve freedom. Now, as an activist, if you want to vote as an activist to help this activist amplify my message, that's a different thing. I would convince you to vote as an activist, not to try and convince you that that's the way you should act to achieve freedom. And I think that should be the libertarian message, actually.
It's beautiful. So is your declaration of individual independence attractive to agorists? How or why not?
It's not done yet, so it really hasn't. I haven't got a lot of reactions to it yet. This is a new plan that's popped up in the last month, so I don't really have data to answer that question yet.
That's very fair. So the last question I would like to ask is, in summary, of agorism being engaging in civil disobedience, counter-establishment economics, and refraining from voting, which one of those three would you say is most impacting to dismantle the state? Civil disobedience, counter-establishment economics, or refraining from voting? Maybe if you could consider the question as if you were giving advice to a new libertarian, what would be the first one of those three steps that you would recommend?
I think the most effective thing you can do is have conversations exactly like this with as many people as you possibly can. Describing the basics of ethics, the non-aggression principle, the simplicity of the golden rule, and how important consent is to right and wrong, and extending this idea of consent to government where it's constantly violated, and then finding out people's areas of disagreement. Like I asked you, what area is remaining in your head that you think it's right to attack me to make happen? And then just calmly and peacefully and with curiosity and empathy and plenty of time and patience and multiple conversations spread out over months if necessary, move that discussion forward, move that mind closer and closer to freedom. Now, actions speak louder than words. So in addition to those conversations, I think resisting immoral laws, counter-economics are great methods of putting actions behind the words, behind these conversations you're having with people. Again, I think as libertarians, we should only be asking people to vote for us if they're already mostly woke and want to do it as an activist, because because actions speak louder than words. If we are acting in a system of trying to get people to vote for us for the purposes of achieving freedom politically, I think that message is counter to our own principles and goals. I think you're sending the opposite message. And so your words have to be so loud to override the hypocrisy of your actions in playing this game. Because like I keep saying this loudly, and I'm doing this on purpose. I am running my campaign for not governor of Texas and that's why I call myself not governor, because it immediately puts me at odds with what everyone thinks of normally when they consider somebody running for governor of Texas. I have no authority, no system of voting, no number of votes can give me any power whatsoever over you. And so I have to say that 50 times as loud because I'm using this process to achieve, as an activist. That's how I would answer that.
It's a beautiful synopsis presentation. You know, I have a lot of questions from the miscellaneous file that I could ask you, but I think we've had a very substantial conversation. I'm very satisfied with it.
I have very much enjoyed our conversation. I will not ask you the question of if I've won you over. I'd like you to please take time, think about it, and then let's maybe pick this up in a week. And if you have any new thoughts or ideas or this conversation that you and I are having is the most powerful form of activism, like I just answered your question. And I think doing this publicly for people with two intelligent individuals that can have a peaceful conversation is really, really useful. This is activism, and I appreciate you for participating in it with me today.